What's up, positive bitches? How are we doing today? If you're hearing this episode, you are meant to be here, so keep listening. On that Bitches Positive podcast, sometimes we will laugh, other times, baby girl, we're gonna cry, but we will always walk away feeling our most empowered, positive bitch self. That is babe in total connection with herself. As positive bitches, we are all about unbecoming who we are not, so we can fully step into and embody exactly who we came here to be. On today's special episode, we are learning how to become hotter, but not in a way you've ever learned before. We see tips on what to do at the gym and how to do your makeup, but we're going to talk about how to become hotter with the 7 Hermetic Principles, coming from the the Kybalion. There are some sexy secrets in this Kybalion book that we have to dive into to fully embody our hottest self. This book, it is cooked in secrecy. It is by the 3 initiates. So we actually don't know who wrote the book. We don't even know where this ancient wisdom comes from. Don't worry though, we will get into all of that. But within these sexy secrets of the 7 Hermetic Principles, we can unlock our hottest version of ourselves and have a very, very sexy, fun, silly summer. But it's all about unbecoming who we are not, what we think we have to be, and unlocking these sexy secrets so we can really show up and show out. I am honored to talk about the 7 Hermetic Principles with you today. When I read this book, I felt an immediate shift. And guess what? You actually don't have to read this book because I did it for you. And I have pricked and prodded everything you need to know and put it together in today's special podcast episode. But before we get into it, you know I have some announcements for you. First things first. If you know, I have been on a hormone healing journey. And with this journey has come lots of tears, lots of happiness, and lots of healing. And I, honest to God, could not get through this hormone healing journey if it wasn't for Magic Mind. You see, I was breaking out in dermatitis left and right. I couldn't figure out why. I was getting terrible hormonal acne, and my body was just going through it. I realized that I was taking in way too much caffeine, which was causing me to break out all along my jaw and even my temples. What I knew I needed to do was get off the amount of caffeine I was using, so I did. But then what happened is I felt so depleted that I had no energy and I needed a happy medium, and that's why Magic Mind is my magic in a bottle. Magic Mind gives me that little boost of energy, but it has all natural ingredients. When you read the label, you understand everything that's in it. It's also way less caffeine than I was taking before, so it really helps me get my work done or get my workout done without giving me that crazy high followed by a super low. I drink these little magic shots anytime I'm about to do a workout, and they help me focus, they help me get the job done, and I feel really healthy and good while doing it. I think we've all had that experience where we drink too much coffee or we take too much caffeine and we literally feel our body shaking and buzzing. That will never happen to you with Magic Mind. So, why is Magic Mind so freaking powerful? I personally believe it comes down to its ingredients. It contains matcha, which has way less caffeine than coffee, and also it has ashwagandha, which is an adaptogen that helps reduce stress and anxiety, lion's mane mushrooms, which also helps you reduce anxiety and inflammation. This is why we don't get that crazy high and that crazy low. There are the perfect blend of ingredients to help you have that boost of energy, but also help you stay grounded. And as a woman who wants to have a good workout and wants a boost of energy, I love that I can have my magic mind that gives me that boost of energy, but it still allows me to flow with my cycle and not break out in acne. And even when I went to a naturopathic doctor, she said that Magic Mind was a-okay to take. I am so thankful for Magic Mind, and I've seen such a transformation in my life that I cannot, as your fellow positive bitch, go on in life and not tell you about this special that you can get yourself. Right now, you can go to www.magicmind.com/positive and get up to 50% off your subscription for the next 10 days with my code positive. Your code will be valid forever as 20% off for both one-time purchases and subscriptions, but in the first 10 days, it's up to 50% off if applied to a subscription. Again, that's www.magicmind.com/positive, and you can get up to 50% off your subscription for the next 10 days with my code positive. I will put this link and all the information in the show notes down below, but I'm telling you, if you're anything like me and you're struggling with your hormones and you're struggling with getting everything done and you need that boost of energy, but you want to stay in flow with your natural cycle, Magic Mind can also be your little magic in a bottle. Also, if you're not yet following me on Instagram at Vibing with Cece, I give golden nuggets of advice, how to master your magnetic energy literally daily. I'm always chit-chatting there. You can also follow this podcast's Instagram at That Bitch Is Positive. If you're looking to up-level your dating life, you can download the Divine Feminine Healing Workbook to help you get into your feminine energy, balance yourself out, and you can also download the Calling Your Power Back Workbook that will help you understand everything you need to know about the subtle energies when it comes to dating. They control literally everything. And that's even something we will talk about today with the 7 Hermetic Principles. And of course, if you're going through a transition, join the 21-day Breakup Glow Challenge. Again, all links will be in the show notes, where you can learn how to put yourself back on the pedestal, take your power back, date yourself, move through emotions, and ultimately completely transform who you used to be and knock on the door to a new life. To begin our exploration into the 7 sexy Hermetic Principles, where can we start? Well, why not start with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Hermes Trismegistus. Now, I'm not kidding when I say the man, the myth, the legend, because literally no one knows if this dude is real or fake. Some say he was Moses, Moses from the Bible. Some say he's half God. Some say he is just completely fictional based on many thought leaders that someone decided to smush into one person. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Because what we get from Hermes, and yes, we're on a first name basis now, is universal, timeless, ancient wisdom that belongs to not one person, not one party, not one religion, but to all of us. Universal truths that all of us can use to become healthier, happier, wealthier, and why not hotter? I'm not kidding you. When I started to implement these 7 sexy Hermetic principles into my life, I transcended so much of what no longer was serving me that I just felt like I was so light on my feet. I noticed that the energy I was putting out was received better, and I became even more magnetic than I ever was before. Now, the term Hermetic, what does that actually mean? A lot of people equate Hermetic with secrecy. It means sealed so that nothing can escape. And this by reason of the fact that which the followers of Hermes always observed the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They did not believe in casting pearls before the swine, but rather held to the teaching milk for babes, meat for the strong, both of which maxims are familiar to readers of the Christian scriptures, but both of which had been used by Egyptians for centuries before the Christian era. So what they're basically saying is that the reason this knowledge isn't thrown into our face is because it's not meant for everyone. It's sort of along the lines that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and this is your moment. Bitch, you're the student. You're ready. I was the student when I read this, and now I'm going to be your teacher. Hello, girly. And we're going to go through these 7 Hermetic Principles. Now, they put together 7 simple Hermetic Principles in one book, and they called it the Kybalion. And this was written by the 3 initiates, whoever they are. Thank you for this beautiful wisdom. Again, while we do not know the exact origins of this book, what I do know is how amazing and transformative the knowledge is. I think if we're going to have this ancient wisdom, we need to have modern ways to actually execute what the teachings say. To read this book is awesome, to have knowledge, cool, but nothing is as amazing as taking these teachings and actually applying the action, because that's true power. We're going to go through these principles one by one, and I'm going to translate the words of this book into modern language that we can use to make ourselves hotter, happier, wealthier, and everything else we could possibly want, because these teachings really transcend so many different genres, so many different teachings. Oh, and by the way, if you can't tell, yes, I have allergies. Let's just get that out of the way. Okay? So we're going to channel Hermes, wherever he may be, whoever he may be. Maybe it's even a woman. I don't know. Could be. And we're going to go through these 7 Hermetic Principles. The first Hermetic Principle is the all is mind, the universe is mental. The first principle is the principle of mentalism. I'm going to be reading some things from the book, but only the quotes that I feel are really important for us to know. And then I'm going to take it and give you my understanding, my truth about it, so that we can really understand. Because hearing the mind is all, the universe is mental, that's awesome and all, but what the fuck does that mean? And that's what we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about how we can use it to make us hotter. So when they say the mind is all, what they're saying is that everything on this freaking planet, before it could be on this planet in 3D incarnation, it started in the mind. Everything is first harnessed through our mind. Therefore, our mind is everything. Think of an invention that wasn't first thought of in someone's mind. That doesn't exist, because everything that's invented, whether it's technology or a business plan, was first thought about. It was first conceived in someone's mind. How can we use this to our advantage to make us hotter? We want to envision in our mind what we want to see in our reality, period. If our mind is everything and our mind is what is creating the world around us, thinking about what we don't want, thinking negatively about ourselves is the worst possible use of our imagination. We're literally creating the exact opposite of what it is we want. That's what we're doing. In order to become your hottest version of yourself, before you can see it physically, you need to conceive it mentally in your mind. This means connecting to that desired version of yourself and literally asking that version of yourself, hi, hottest version of self, what do you do every day? What are your daily habits? Do you drink more water? How do you dress? How do you talk? How do you walk? What are your affirmations? Do you have a morning routine? Connect to this hottest version of you and start conceiving in your mind what this looks like to you. When this hottest version of you walks into a room, how is she walking? How are people perceiving her? How is she talking to others? How does she interact with the people around her? What is she doing? Everything in the universe is just mental, because everything in the universe was first created in someone's mind. And to understand this is to conceive things in your mind first, purposefully. To not just let your mind wander, We know that we are both broadcasters and receivers of energy. So if we start thinking negatively about ourselves, what do? What's the first thing we start attracting? We start attracting negative thoughts first. Then we start attracting negative feelings. Then we start attracting negative circumstances. But everything begins in the mind. Everything is first conceived in the mind. When you look around in the world, understand everything you see was first conceived in someone's mind or the mind of society. The universe is mental, held in the mind of the all. Everything, no matter what you look at, first started in someone's mind. I always think this is such a random example, but my dad is very precise about the landscaping that he has in front of his home. And so many people, while I was growing up, and still this day, if I'm walking my dogs, they'll come up to me and say, "Do you live there? Do you know who lives there?" And I'll say, "Yeah." And they'll say, "You have the most gorgeous landscaping. Whoever creates this landscaping is amazing." It's my dad. And how does he do it? In his mind first. How do you create any sort of business plan or artistic plan, whatever it may be? You begin creating it in your mind. Your mind is a tool. Do not use it against yourself. If you want to become this hottest version of you, connect to that hottest version of yourself and ask her, what are you doing on a daily basis? That hottest version of you already exists in the quantum field. You, however, have to invite her to make connection so you can garner the necessary action plan you need, the knowledge you need, the ideas you need to put them into play. Even though everything looks physical in this universe, it started out mental. So, the first principle, the sexiness of the first principle, is that everything starts out in your mind. If that's the case, that means if you can conceive it in your mind, you can have it in this reality. If you can think about it, you can have it. And what's that funny little quote we often talk about? Man becomes what he thinks about most of the time. Woman becomes what she thinks about most of the time. Period. Why? Because everything is actually mental. It's a mental universe. We live in a mental world, and I'm not talking about that kind of mental. I'm talking about thoughts, vision, ideas. Your thought, your why, your vision, that is what creates the most momentum to actually create in this physical 3D. It doesn't start in the physical, it starts in the mental. So how do we use this to become hotter? We envision ourselves as our hottest version of ourselves. We envision and act from this point of view. If I'm envisioning the hottest version of myself, I'm going to think like her, act like her, be like her, behave like her. I'm going to have her habits. I'm going to embody her truth. So if my hottest version of me drinks 100 ounces of water every day, that is random. That's not me saying that's what I do. That is a random number. But if that's what I see my hottest version of myself doing every day, that's what I'm going to start to do. The next sexy Hermetic principle is the principle of correspondence. Now, we've talked about before the law of correspondence. So if this one sounds familiar, it's because, bitch, it is familiar. Okay, knock, knock. We've talked about this before. However, we use the law, the law of correspondence instead of the principle. They're the same thing though. And without further ado, let's get into this one. The principle of correspondence states, as above, so below, as below, so above. This principle embodies the truth that there's always a correspondence between the laws and the phenomena of the various planes of being and life. Dun, 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 dun. There are planes beyond our knowing. But when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. The principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. I find myself constantly applying this principle in my life. What it's basically saying is that everything is connected. Your internal world will always be reflected back to you in your external world. This means if I am constantly abandoning myself, I'm going to attract people who also abandon me. If I'm constantly ghosting my own emotions, I'm going to attract people who ghost how I feel. The planes of existence, of being, are intertwined with one another. So when we are continuously seeing the same sort of results in our external world, instead of being like, I have no power and I must be ugly, we can understand, wait a second, what am I doing in my internal world that might be causing this sort of reaction in my external world? We can also see this as above, so below. There are many things happening in a larger schema, in government, in politics, in technology with AI, and we can look at all this and we can get really, really concerned and upset and maybe overwhelmed. But I always think if it's happening in this physical realm, there's something corresponding with it in a higher realm. And that really puts me to ease, knowing that if it's happening in a higher realm, we're moving towards the light. So it's not that this realm is the master controller. It's not that everything happening in this realm, that the cause and effect is happening in this physical realm. That's not the case. So the same way that our internal world is reflected back to us in our external, the planes of higher dimensions are also reflected back to the plane that we are living on right now. So how do we actually use this to our advantage? If we are noticing that there are so many things that are going, quote unquote, I'll say, wrong in our reality, instead of giving up our power and losing our shit, which is not hot at all, we can become really, really hot by taking responsibility over our life and saying, wait a second, I have a lot more creative control than I'm realizing right now. I have a lot more creative control than I'm giving myself credit. If my external world is somehow reflecting what's internally going on with me, what may I be thinking? Because the universe is mental. Hello, principle number 1. What could I maybe feeling? What could I maybe doing that is causing my external reality to treat me in this way? And this isn't to blame the victim at all. And I feel like I do have to say that because sometimes bad things happen and it's not necessarily because of us. There are so many subconscious thoughts and beliefs that we have, and we also have hitchhiker entities that attach onto our body, and they can cause really negative things to unfold in our life. We will get to that, but it's important to understand that sometimes there's things happening in a higher realm that are maybe like a negative entity got attached to us in our energetic realm, and we're not realizing it, and then we're attracting negative things towards us. What do? The best thing we can do is take responsibility. Whether it's a subconscious belief or a negative entity, or it's just you thinking that you kind of suck, so you're attracting sucky experiences, cleanse yourself. Get some white sage. You can even just go into your bath or shower and imagine all the negativity just washing off of you. And we want to restart, refresh, so we can allow ourselves to rebirth into a new season of our hottest girl season yet. Okay, that's what we want to do. We don't want to look at things for just face value. We need to look underneath the surface. And when we go underneath the surface, we see, wait a second, everything is not how it actually seems. Maybe it's not that all men are trash. Maybe it's that I either have some negative beliefs that I have about myself or a negative entity. But if I use some white sage, if I start becoming an active participant of my life instead of allowing my past to control me, I can restart this. I can rebirth my own self. The Kybalion states that there's 3 great planes: the plane of the physical, the plane of the mental, and the plane of the spiritual. So keep in mind that these 3 planes are constantly in correspondence with one another, affecting one another, causing situations to unfold in one another. So if you cannot figure out why something keeps happening in the physical realm, maybe it's because the causation is happening in the spiritual or emotional realm. And that's something you can take responsibility over by pausing and becoming curious about why you're getting the results you're getting. And if you want different results, you have to begin to think, be, act, behave differently. The third law is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, and nothing is at rest. These are facts which modern science endorses, and with each new scientific discovery, they all tend to verify this as truth as well. Really interesting. What this actually means is that the principle explains that the difference between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. What did I just say? The differences between different manifestations, why one thing manifests and another thing doesn't, is because of the varying rates of vibration. This is what we need to understand. There's a reason why we attract different people and repel different people at different times in our life. Every single thing on this planet is vibration. Your fuzzy socks are all made of energy. It's vibration. My water bottle is vibration. It's energy. You are energy. You are vibration. Everything is always moving and grooving in one direction and another. This is why people come in and out of our life. When someone leaves our life, I know it's so easy to state and to go to the worst case scenario of, I'm not good enough, I always get abandoned. What if you just fell out of vibration with this person? Think about what would make you hotter. You feeling like everyone abandons you and no one loves you, or believing, which is probably closest to the truth, that this person simply fell out of vibrational alignment with you. If you are a vibration and vibrations are always moving, which directions are the vibrations moving in? Like attracts like. So like vibration is always moving towards one another, and dislike vibration is always moving apart, away from one another. So if you've had someone in your life since first grade and you've been great friends, and now you're going to college and you have nothing in common, that dislike vibration is going to start to separate. Instead of telling ourselves a story and creating meaning that everyone leaves our lives or that we suck or whatever it may be, why not just remember that everything is vibration, and maybe we're just not in the same vibration any longer. This is a law of vibration, even when it comes to manifestation. Why do you think people say embody what it is you wish to attract? Be the vibe you wish to attract in the world. Why would we say that? Because like attracts like. And when you embody the vibration you seek out, that vibration will also seek you out. Why? Because like attracts like. So if you want to be this hottest version of yourself, how can we become that vibration? We have to start doing what we think our hottest self would be doing. And then we attract the right people, the right circumstance, the right resources, everything we need to feel like our hottest version of ourselves. I think a key takeaway from this principle is not to take other people leaving our life as personal, and instead take it as vibrational. I always say, do not take things personal, take them vibrational. What is this connection trying to teach you? Not why is this person trying to trigger me? Two very different questions that will give you very different information and will lead you onto a different path. If everything is always moving, remember, you're going to move towards what you already are. Not what you want, but what you are. So if you are desiring to become this hottest version of yourself, this most magnetic version of yourself, you have to first start to become this hottest version of yourself, this most magnetic version of yourself. And again, how do we do that? We can go back to principle 1 and start asking that desired version of ourselves, hey, what are you doing? And what do I need to do? And then we just start doing it. I know there's this whole entire idea of acting as if or playing hard to get. To me, it's all bullshit. Like, I know it can work for some people, but I never see it fully unraveling how they actually want. I've literally never seen that. Instead of acting as if or playing hard to get, just be what it is you want. Literally become what it is you want. You know the steps you need to take. Everything you have is within you, but you need to pull it out. So instead of playing hard to get, well, that wouldn't actually work. And why wouldn't that work? Because as I'm ignoring someone's text, let's say I'm talking to Brad and I'm not going to answer Brad's text. I can't answer Brad's text. The whole entire time I'm thinking, I can't answer his text. Oh my God, I can't touch my phone because I might open it and it will tell him that I read it. Oh my God, I have to fill my day up with something to do so I don't text Brad back. What am I doing? All I'm thinking about is Brad. Playing hard to get is just bullshit. Period. It's going to make you really exhausted and really depleted. Do not play hard to get. Don't act as if. Instead, just become. Because when you become busy and you actually just sign up for a class, create a new, I don't know, TikTok page, or do a new recipe, something like that, literally anything. When you actually just make yourself busy, you become that magnetic version of yourself, that hot version of yourself, and you don't have to pretend. The next sexy Hermetic principle is number 4, the law of polarity. Now, we've spoken about polarity so many times, but the way they break this down is so different and so interesting. I'm excited for you to hear it. They say that everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Everything has extremes. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. They have that there is a thesis and antithesis, which are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, only differing in degree. What did I just say? Don't worry, we're going to break it down. So the first things we need to understand about polarity is polarity will always manifest. So in relationship, if you are in your divine feminine, that will allow for great polarity in your relationship if you're wanting to attract a divine masculine. The more you stay in your feminine, the more that other partner will be in their masculine. However, if you start stepping into your masculine, there has to be polarity. Your partner will then pivot and go into their feminine. So in all creation, everywhere, there are always these opposites. As much as there is light, there's going to be dark. As much as there is positive, there's going to be negative. As much as there is feminine energy, there will also be masculine energy. I also like to apply this when I think about the different seasons of our life. As deep as we feel pain in some of our seasons, we eventually will also feel pleasure. Because with polarity, they're opposites, but they're even. And that's something we really want to remember here. Now, the way they talk about polarity that I find so interesting is the way they talk about opposites. They say that opposites are the same thing in nature, they just differ in degree of vibration, aka light and darkness are the same thing, they just differ in degree of vibration. We cannot understand light if we do not understand darkness. We need both to actually define the other one. So it's almost like when you think about what, let's say, the traditional concept of heaven is. The reason they say that you can't learn and develop and grow in heaven is because it's always just light and it's always just happiness. There's no difference in degree of vibration because it's all just a very high vibration. So then what do you have to do? You have to come to planet Earth to feel denser vibrations, to feel contrast, to feel polarity. And only then can you understand how amazing that other part of it is, which is the light. So what this is saying is we cannot understand one extreme without the other. When we're going through these seasons, it's not that one season is super pleasure and the next season is all about pain. It's that one season we know what pleasure is, we felt pleasure, we experienced pleasure, and the next season we had an absence of pleasure, which we define as pain. But what they're trying to say is that pain and pleasure are the same thing in nature, they just differ in degree. And in order to explain and understand one part of the spectrum, you have to understand the other. It's also like in relationships. How can we go from love and hate so quickly? Aren't those very different things? No. Love and hate are the same thing in nature. They just differ in degree. And it's really easy to shift our vibration to go from one of them to the other. How can we use this to make ourselves hotter? One, we can remember that when we're having an absence of pleasure, a season that feels more painful, that pleasure actually isn't that far away. It's the same thing in nature as pain. It's just a different degree. And we can use something like the Abraham Hicks emotional guidance scale to little by little make ourselves feel better over time and eventually get ourselves back to that pleasure feeling. We can also understand that when we are having hatred for someone, it's not necessarily that we actually hate them. If it's someone we once loved, it's still love. It's just in a different degree. And instead of hating them, we can recognize what this emotion is, what this vibration is, what this polarity is, and begin to release it. What do they say? They say that having hatred, having resentment, having anger towards someone is just like drinking poison and thinking it's going to harm your enemies. Holding on to these energies doesn't hurt anyone but ourselves. I think that when we realize that there's polarity in the world and we're going to experience both because we came here to, I feel that just lessens the burden and the emotions that I feel when something negative is happening. Every time something negative happens to me, I'm always like, oh, well, there's polarity in the world and I can't wait for something better to happen because it must even itself out. I think it's a really good way to remind yourself that eventually this will fade and the next best thing will come in. Something that I really like that they say that I think I should read is the same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness. Kind of what I was saying before, which are the same thing. So again, light and darkness are the same thing. The difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomenon. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, between black and white, between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative? The same principle operates on the mental plane. Let us take a radical and extreme example, that of love and hate. Two mental states apparently totally different, and yet the degrees of hate and the degrees of love have a middle point in which we sometimes use the terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we are at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither. And all are simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see, if you will, but think for a moment. Love and hate and light and dark and soft and hard, they're all the same thing, but just varying degrees of one another. So maybe when we're having this hatred or this extreme emotion towards someone, we can remind ourselves, well, it's just a differing degree of something much different than what I'm feeling right now. The next principle is the sexy Hermetic principle of rhythm. And this states that everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall, and the pendulum swings, manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left, and the rhythm will always compensate. What we want to do with this is learn how to use the law or the principle of rhythm so it cannot use us. I see that a lot of us will have these really, really high highs and these really, really low lows. How do we start to interrupt this pattern so we can neutralize ourselves out? It's exactly what I just said. It's interruption. Awareness, interruption, new response. We've been talking about this a lot on That Bitch is Positive, about how the more space or pause you take between a trigger and a reaction, the more time you give yourself to actually respond in a way that's in alignment with your hottest self or with your authentic self. If I'm triggered and I immediately react, that doesn't give me time to consciously think about and actively participate in a way that makes me feel good. How can we become an active participant, become our hottest self? We have to create space between our trigger and our reaction. And in this secret saucy moment, we have a moment to decide how we wish to show up. So maybe instead of flipping out on someone because they didn't answer us for an hour, we can take a pause and ask ourselves, well, what am I actually feeling right now? And does this have to do with my past relationships, or is it more about this person? Is this more about my own personal patterns, or is it about this person? Could it be that my triggers are becoming really irritated, or is it that something's wrong with this person and I haven't talked to them in 3 days? So we want to start to understand, is it my anxiety or is this a red flag? And the only way we can do that in life is by taking conscious pauses and actually reflecting on the current moment. If you feel like you're having extreme highs and extreme lows, the way around this is through neutralization of your emotions and your thoughts by taking a pause. And that's how you can start to use the law of rhythm to your advantage rather than having it use you. And like the law states, as much as the pendulum swings in one direction, it will swing in the other. If you start neutralizing your decisions, your actions, your behaviors, your thoughts, and you only go so far to the left, you will also only go so far to the right. The next principle is the principle of cause and effect. This states that every cause has its effects. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. I love that. I'm going to say that again. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation. Nothing escapes this law. What I think is really important to understand about the cause and the effect is kind of what we said before when we were talking about the law or the principle of correspondence. Like I said before, there are multiple planes of existence. We have the physical, we have the mental, we have the spiritual. One cause in one plane could cause the effect in another plane. And now, if we broaden this up to karma, this is a crazy thing about this, is that the cause and effect might not even be from this lifetime. Like if you did something in your past life that was really, really great, you might have a bunch of positive karma in this life, and that's the effect of the cause from your past life. Also, cause and effect, yeah, it could be karma, yeah, it could be coming from a spiritual plane or a mental plane, but it can also be from someone else, where someone triggers us so deep that they cause a spiritual awakening. So cause and effect is always happening all around us, but it can be happening in many different ways. It could be the cause from the mental realm. It could be a cause from our past life. It could be a cause from another person. How can we transcend the effects and the causes and all of this junky junk? What we can start to do, like I said before, is really become an active participant. And instead of trying to get people back or becoming obsessed with revenge or being hyper concerned about what people are doing, whatever it may be, we can just instead start playing from our heart center. We can instead have pure intentions, and that makes us so hot. Like, what is hotter than pure intentions, a good person, a good heart, going out there just worried about yourself, doing the damn thing? What's hotter than that? Because I literally can't think of anything. Can you? So instead of being so concerned about everyone else, you want to start to take control over the causes in your life. And you can become the mover instead of always having to be moved. How do you do this? You play from your heart center. You worry about you. You pay attention to what your dreams are, your goals are, but also you take control of the first principle, which is the all is mental. You take control over your mind space. You take control about what you're thinking. Yes, you do have control over your thoughts more than you think. You can pick your thoughts like you pick your clothes and your lipstick and all that jazz, but it takes practice. It takes time, and then eventually it will feel like a second skin. Maybe you can't control every single thought. You can't control the first thought that you have, but once you have awareness that you're starting to think in a direction that you don't want to go down, you can then take a pause. Hello. You can then take a second. You can then take a little beat to interrupt that initial thought process and then reground yourself. So I'm not saying you have to police every single thought, but I mean, like, damn, get some control over yourself, girl, because that makes you hot. This illusionary control that we think we have over other people is a waste of time, okay? We try to control everything outside of ourselves because the world seems so uncontrollable, so uncertain. The best way to gain true control is to control yourself, control your thoughts, control what you're feeling and what you're focusing on, the language you use, the meaning you give to your story, the way you use your body. This is what you can actually have control over. And when you take control over this, that is a recipe for a very hot existence. So become the cause, become the mover by taking control over your thoughts, by not being so concerned about revenge and instead refocusing on yourself. And the last but not least sexy hermetic principle that can allow us to be our hottest self is the principle of gender. This principle states gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So in this physical plane, how does gender manifest? It manifests as a man and a woman, egg and sperm. But that's not all gender is. In our narrative, a lot of people focus on that as gender, but that's not all gender is. Gender exists on every single plane. Let's think about the mental plane, for example. How does gender manifest on the mental plane? Well, we can think about it as I, Cece, am made up of both masculine and feminine energy. I can use my mental masculine energy to come up eventually with some sort of business idea or strategy and outline that and put the action towards it. But I can also use my feminine energy to use my heart center to attract towards me the necessary resources, people, and places I need to make this idea fully manifest. When we combine our own masculine and feminine energies together, that is what really creates magnetic energy. That is what allows us to pull in our dreams, our desires, literally everything. So I want you to think about gender, not just, oh, man, woman, egg, sperm. That's just one way gender manifests on the physical plane. But gender is in the spiritual world. It is in the mental plane. It is everywhere and all around us. And the way we use this to make ourselves hotter is knowing when to tap into which energy. When is it most likely that I should tap into my masculine energy? When I'm doing a workout, when I'm planning something out, when I'm outlining, when I'm maybe moving and I need to figure out how am I going to pack all of this into a truck? Masculine energy. But then I want to use my feminine energy to feel what it is I want to feel in my experience. I want to use it to surrender to the current moment because we have the law of rhythm, and I want to use it to ease, to flow into my desired life. And when we use both of these, it really allows us to not be super stressed out and not super passive. It allows us to find a happy, hot medium. Positive bitches, I hope you enjoyed this episode where we took apart the Kybalion and learned how we can use it to become our hottest self. If this episode resonated with you, if you learned something new, if you found it mind-altering, even confusing, those are all good things because it means you're becoming curious. If you could leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, it means the world to me and really helps this podcast grow. If not for me, do it for you because like we said, cause and effect, you can get some good karma off of it. So why the hell not? I love you so much. As always, it's an honor to record this positive bitch podcast for you. The sparkle in me honors the sparkle in you. I love you, I love you, I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah.